Here we go. Hi, welcome all to the New York City chapter of Cyversity's February Engage event. We have a very exciting guest today, Mr. AJ Yawn, who is the founder and CEO of ByteChek. He has a very fascinating story, and I'm really looking into diving into learning more about his origin story, his founder story, and to introduce him and his company to our Cyversity's audience. Again, my name is Kurby Brown. I am the president of our New York City chapter. We also have Jason and Doyen on the line, who are our secretaries. And Jason, what's your title again?
Treasurer. I'm the treasurer.
Treasurer, yes, the money guy. Yeah, so from our Cyversity chapter, and we should have a few more folks joining in. But we do this every month, typically around the middle towards the end of the month, around lunchtime, with different topics. For those of you new to Cyversity, I just wanted to kind of give a brief overview of what our mission is and what we stand for. We are a nonprofit organization, really laser focused on increasing the representation of women and underrepresented minorities in the cybersecurity industry through programs designed to foster recruitment, inclusion, and retention. One of the programs we are very passionate about is our Engage program, which includes events like today, where we cover topics on career development, career spotlights. We focus on those who are transitioning from other careers into cybersecurity, leadership, and also tech talks. So over the next couple of months, you'll see different themes across our different chapters. From Women's History Month next month, in May, we'll be hosting a panel of Asian American and Pacific Islander leaders in cybersecurity, and the rest. I'm not going to read all of them to you, but we generally have a consistent theme across the chapters in terms of what we do for our Engage events, and I encourage you to kind of join not only the New York City chapter events, but also our other chapters, as they also present pretty great content. And without further ado, I wanted to kind of introduce you all to our guest of the day. I'll give you a little background on AJ. AJ is, again, like I said, the founder and CEO of ByteChek. He's based out of Miami. They say that's the new, I don't know, AJ, they call it the new new version of the Bay Area. I'm hearing a lot of startups coming out of there. He's a seasoned cybersecurity professional with over a decade of information security and compliance experience. He advises startups on cloud security. He's a podcast owner and a founder of the National Association of Black Compliance and Risk Management Professionals. He started his career as a senior member of an international cybersecurity consulting firm. I believe that was Coalfire. He's an Army veteran and earning rank of captain, where he began his information security career in the Army. He has a master's degree from Georgetown, and he's a former basketball player at Florida State. I'm a North Carolina Tar Heel fan. I'm not gonna hold it against you, but I do like Leonard Hamilton. So without further ado, I'm going to stop presenting, and we can meet AJ. Be on the screen here. So AJ, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I really, truly appreciate it.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry if I butchered your intro a little bit. I tend to do that. But again, thank you for joining. And we really want to talk to you kind of about your story today. How you got from where to where you are now, being a founder. You're very active on social media, very entertaining, I would say, as well. So I'll be quiet, and you can maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can get into some of the details of your career and your company.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kurby, for having me, and thanks everyone from Cyversity for allowing me to speak today. I love the mission of what you all are doing here, and grateful to be a part of this. So, like Kurby said, I started my career in the Army. So I see someone in the chat was also a 25 Alpha, and that was my MOS or job specification there for the non-military occupation specialty is what MOS stands for. We like our acronyms in the military just as much as cybersecurity. I learned a lot in the Army. You know, I think a part of the reason why I've had a little bit of success is because I learned how to lead before I learned about technical stuff. I learned about people and what it meant to be a leader. You kind of get forced to lead when you go from playing in the Sweet 16 to 7 months later being deployed and having 18 soldiers looking at you and you're responsible for their lives. And it forces you to grow up really fast as a 23-year-old. And you just got to learn how to lead, learn about empathy. So my Army experience, I'm extremely grateful for. I was raised by a non-commissioned officer, Marine. So I've always been around the military and knew that the military is going to play an important role in my life. And I'm glad I got a chance to serve for a few years. After the service, I landed at Coalfire. When I joined, there was about 9 of us there in the SOC 2 practice. When I left in 2020, well over 130. We were doing SOC 2, ISO, HIPAA, high trust. So I got lucky. I caught him at the right time and was able to grow and do a lot of cool things there. Really got kind of addicted to AWS while I was there at Coalfire and helping people set up secure cloud architectures. And while there, I realized, there was a big problem in the cybersecurity compliance space. People were paying a lot of money for cybersecurity compliance assessments. They were taking months of time to get through them, and we weren't really using any technology. We were using Microsoft Excel, flying out, spending hours in conference rooms, asking really silly questions from a technical perspective. And I figured there's a better way to do this. Typical entrepreneur story. I figured there's a better way to go about it. So I kind of got that entrepreneurial bug bit pretty early on as my time at Coalfire, but I knew I needed to learn a lot more before I could start a company. I needed to learn more about business development. I needed to learn more about marketing. I needed to learn how could I eventually build something that is fundable as well. So I kind of waited my time and kept working really hard to get promoted and get in positions to learn more. And had a great time there. And then in 2020 decided it was the right time to step out and build ByteChek. And part of it was obviously, I know a lot about the cybersecurity compliance space, and we can get into the details of what ByteChek does to automate that. But the other part was I didn't have the same sense of selfless service I felt when I was in the military at Coalfire. Despite the success I had, despite the financial success I was having and the professional success I was having, I still didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel like I had that same enjoyment and purpose every day. And getting bit by the entrepreneurial bug, you start to think of and dream of the company that you would always want to work at and the company you would always want to build. And the part of what I'm really passionate about, Kurby, as you know, because you follow me, is getting more people that look like me in this field and expanding that. And I think I play a very important role in doing that, being the founder of a company, but also, having an impact at scale where we, get the chance to build people up and create a culture where people are able to grow, be themselves, and be truly authentic. And I'm loving that part of the job as a founder of building a company where people don't feel like they got to burn out, that they can do some cool stuff, but they can also enjoy their day to day. So that's a little bit of my story. I know we're going to get into a bunch of questions. I'm excited to talk about a lot of different things here and answer as many questions I can, and hopefully, share something that folks can learn from and on their own journeys.
Okay, sure, great, thank you. So as I mentioned to you yesterday, this is Black History Month, and I really consider folks like you and other founders to really be Black history, particularly in this space. What does that mean if I say that to you, that I believe you're Black history? Do you feel like you're Black history? Do you feel like that's kind of overstating your value?
Yeah, definitely. I do. I appreciate it 100%. I'm humbled by the fact that you even think that. I think I have a lot of work to do. I think I'm very early on in my journey, and I'm standing on the shoulders of a lot of other people that have come before me to allow me to even be in this position. But I think my responsibility is to take this a lot farther, to become and be able to live up to that, to what you're saying. But I think I've started to really settle into my role, and settle into what I'm doing right now. The more I talk to people and engage with the community, I'm learning the impact that I'm having, which is an interesting experience. Yesterday, I spent some time at a local high school here in Miami, and just talking to a lot of kids there that I'm trying to help get into tech that are like, truly some local kids here in Miami, a room full of young Black men. And it was powerful. It was powerful to be in the position to give back like that. So when you say that, Kurby, all it does is motivate me and inspire me to keep going so that I can actually live up to what you're saying.
Awesome. And I think, to me, so much of what we do with these Engage events personally, not even is inspiring to me. I'm learning from folks like yourself who have done great things or in the process of trying to do great things, and it's inspiring to me to keep going. And I hope to our audience. Who are your inspirations, past, present, in Black history, or just family, or what drives you? Who motivates you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot there from a motivation standpoint. I'm a father, so first and foremost, it's my children and building a better future for them. And my son is a junior, and I think a lot about the fact that what I'm building right now is not just for him. It's for Alexander Joshua Yawn the third, Alexander Joshua Yawn the fourth, the fifth, and these future generations of. I'm trying to make sure that this is not something that's just while I'm here on this earth. This is something that's going to impact a lot of other people for the future. And part of my inspiration is I want my kids to want to inspire. I want them to have the same charge that I have to go out and inspire others. So a big part of my motivation is my children and building the future that I want them to live in. I was raised by a Marine. My father's a Marine. He served 20 years in the Marine Corps. So a lot of the discipline, a lot of the just showing up when you don't feel like it that I have in me came from him, and watching how he grew his career and led our family, and was just a great man that I have a ton of respect for, and wouldn't be here without him for sure. Another, somebody that has motivated me is Coach Leonard Hamilton, who I played for at Florida State. He did a lot of things while I was there to change my life, but also since then. And Coach Ham, and you kind of, if anybody knows about basketball, you'll hear it, like Florida State program, wherever Coach Ham is, like a players program. He really cares about his players and treats his players well. And that's not just talk. He really showed me what it meant to put people first and to care about people beyond. And, in college, it's a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds that are divas that all think that they are the greatest thing ever and been recruited for their whole entire. So it's really hard to get those type of dudes to really focus and be a part of something bigger than themselves. And he showed me how to do that. He showed me what leadership meant, and it wasn't about basketball. It was about caring about the person, caring about their family, caring about who they are and what motivates them, and tapping into that. So Coach Ham is a huge inspiration for me. And historical, I study Malcolm X a lot. And one of the things that I think is not told enough about Malcolm X is his transition and his growth as a man throughout his life. We often hear about the militant Malcolm. We don't hear about who he was at the end of his life, El Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, a man that knew that the way to get to where he wanted to was to bring the world together and not divide it. And I think one of the things that I am very comfortable in is that fact that I'm evolving. I'm a changing man, and things change, the world changes, and my viewpoint changes. And I think sometimes people beat themselves up for becoming different. And the one thing I've learned from studying Malcolm X is that change, you change in your life, that's growth, that's important. And that's how you really are a true sign of, I think, wisdom. When you can have a viewpoint, you can learn more information and change your viewpoint, and it's okay. And you can move and grow. So those are a few of the people that inspire me. It starts with my kids, but I'm an avid reader. I study a lot of Stoic philosophy as well. So there's a lot of Roman emperors out there that inspire me as well that I've tapped into. But those are the folks.
Just kind of staying in Black History Month, and over, you think about the last 2.5 years, from George Floyd to Ahmaud Arbery, all the things going on, and then the corporate push to really be supportive of Black business and Black individuals. How has that impacted ByteChek and yourself, and any viewpoints on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I honestly haven't seen any impacts from it. I think there was a lot of noise. A lot of commitments, a lot of people saying, and corporations saying that they're going to do certain things. And I know there's been a lot of reports that come out recently, and I hope we continue to hold some of those corporations accountable for saying that they were going to do certain things to change it. And I think it goes back to, I was asked this when the whole, when things started picking up in 2020, they're like, what does all this mean to you? And like, what does this movement mean to you? And I'm like, hey man, like me being Black is not a movement. This is something I've been Black since I was born, and I will continue to be Black until I die. So this is not a phase of time that is just like important. Like this is important all the time. And I think that's where I hope we get, where it's not just like we're supporting it because now there's a light on these issues. So like Black people have existed in this country for over 400 years with this experience. And we need to acknowledge that and then continue to do things, not just when it's popular. I think the energy though did inspire a lot of Black founders and a lot of Black businesses to start, because we felt like we would be able to get through some of those hurdles that previously existed. And I know some corporations have done a lot from like they've invested in venture funds that invest in Black founders. So there's like some tertiary things there that are happening. But at the same time, I just got done raising a $3 million seed round of funding, and I'll tell you that it wasn't easier because of all these corporate commitments or because of all this energy around. I still had some really moments where I know I wasn't invested in because of the color of my skin. And 80% of our investors are Black-led funds or Black angels, which was really important to me. So, unfortunately, I haven't seen the impacts of all of these commitments and things that, as a founder or at ByteChek, but I do think that we need more people that are going back to those commitments and shining a light on whether or not they lived up to them.
Okay. All right. You talked about some of your funding challenges. What made you say now is the time I can start my company now? I'm ready. We talked yesterday a little bit when we had our kind of pre-meet about when you were at Coalfire, some of the people, the founders that you talked to, you kind of put them on this pedestal. And I think we do that in cybersecurity professionals. Oh, that guy's a CISO. I'm talking to a CISO, and he we put them on this pedestal. Can you talk about kind of your realization that they put their pants on just like you, and that you actually were good enough to be at that table and to be a peer to those folks?
Yeah, it was fascinating because I transitioned into this role where we were partnered with the startup, and then we were evaluating a few startups as well to potentially buy. And I was talking to 5-6 startup founders a day at times. And I just realized, like, I used to think like every startup founder was this super genius that is just like solving the world's problems in their head every day. And I was kind of putting them on a pedestal. And when I interact with them more, I realized it's just a bunch of regular people that try really hard and took a risk. And a lot of it was just about that. And they had a problem that they knew how to solve, and generally with software. So that realization kind of gave me the confidence, like, all right, AJ, like, there's no more excuses. There's no more excuses of why you can't do this. The financial situation I had, I was able to save up some money and take a significant pay cut. I felt like I had accomplished everything for the team that I was leading there at Coalfire. And one of the things that I think about often, I can't remember who said this, but they were talking about a scene that they were envisioning, or somebody told them to envision on their deathbed, and around their deathbed are the ghosts of all the things they wish they would have done. And they're going to ask you, why didn't you do it? And I don't want to have any of those ghosts on my deathbed. I don't want to have a ghost saying, hey, why didn't you start that company? And I'm actually, the timing of starting ByteChek, I don't know if I would have had the courage to keep going if the timing was off by like a week. Because I left Coalfire on February 28th. I started building ByteChek. By starting building ByteChek, I mean I created my Google account, my Yawn at ByteChek email on March 1st, and try to figure out how to set up all that stuff. The world kind of felt like it shut down like 3 days later because the pandemic took over, NBA season shut down. I kind of had to look in the mirror that day, like, are you really about to do this? And people might not be spending on cybersecurity later this year. And if I would have maybe waited a couple weeks longer, right, and stayed at Coalfire, might have been really difficult for me to make this decision, which I'm glad that I did, because I don't want to live. A part of the reason why I started the company is I just didn't want to live with any regrets. I wanted to make sure that in 20 years I did everything that I said I wanted to do, because why not? The worst that could happen is failing. And if I fail, every time I failed something, there's been something really good on the other side. So failure doesn't scare me. It kind of excites me because I know that there's usually a benefit at the end of it. So a lot of it was like not wanting to live with any regret, wanting to make sure that if I want something, I pursued it and didn't let the fear of failing stop me from doing it.
Can you talk about some of those voices that were telling you don't do it? You know, what were they saying? And then what, how did you overcome them? Because I think that is, I mean, we're talking from your perspective as a founder, but I think that's a problem for people in general, right? You know, what if I fail? And all the reasons why I should not take this chance.
Yeah, I mean, first voice was as a dad, like, hey man, like you got to take care of these kids. Like you can't just, you know, not have a job, and you got to actually provide for your family. But you know, what happened is I did the math. I thought I needed more money than what I needed. I looked at my savings, like, hold on, man, like you actually can do this. Like, what excuse are you making? So a lot of what I do is I try to take away the emotional part of decision making when I do things and look at things objectively and ask myself, what advice would I give someone else? Instead of thinking about what I would tell myself, like, what advice would you give someone else if they were going through this? If they said, hey, I don't think I have enough money to quit my job and take a $200,000 pay cut to do this. Like, cool. So tell me about that. What's your savings? What else do you have? What bills do you have? And peel it back. I was like, okay, like financially, I can do this. The other part was my family. My family was like, you know, because coming from, you know, first generation to graduate college, first person to be in corporate America making X dollar, like, hey man, like, sure you want to give that up? You sure you're going to walk away from that? And I had been supporting a lot of my, you know, family at the time as well. And I had to tell them like, hey, like all that support's getting cut off here pretty soon. You know, we're going to pull that back. So there was my family asking me, you know, if I wanted to do this. And when I kind of realized that, and I still say this to people today, like I am so focused on this outcome of what ByteChek is going to mean if we succeed, that I'm on this bus, I'm on this trip, and I'm gonna go there, regardless of who's on the bus with me, regardless if the bus gets a flat tire, regardless if I got to walk there with no shoes. Like I'm going to this end destination, and I'm just a pit bull when it comes to stuff like that. Once I'm committed to something, committed to a goal, there's not much that will deter me. And I think as a founder, if you're going to start a business, you have to truly believe in a better world that you're creating, because you're creating something from nothing. And you got to decide that the world that I want to create is more important than all of the things that are going to get in my way, all the people that are going to tell me not to do it, especially in the early days. No one's going to believe you. I remember my family, like I was telling them about starting the company for a long time, but when I finally did it, they're like, wait, you actually are doing this? I'm like, I told you, look, no one's going to believe you. And you got to decide, like, you don't care. Like, you got to really become, it's kind of like, I tell people it's kind of psychopathic, like as a founder, because you got to like ignore everybody saying this is a really bad idea, don't do it. And you still have that belief that you're the right person to figure this out. And what you're doing is so important. The doubt doesn't matter. And you're willing just to go after it. So that's what it's been about for me, man. Like I am so locked in on what we're building here at ByteChek and the outcome that I think we're going to have, both, you know, from a capitalist perspective for the cybersecurity industry, but also for the impact we're going to leave for future. I'm headed there. I'm headed to this end goal, and whoever gets on the train, cool. I'm happy to have you on board. If you jump off, I'm going to keep going, and hopefully we'll see each other at the end. But it's a focus. It's truly like a relentless focus that you just put the blinders on and say, I'm not going to be stopped.
Have you always been that person, or is it something you developed over? You kind of grew more comfortable as you got older with that level of focus and ability to kind of block out the white noise?
I think sports has helped a lot with that. The mindset with sports, especially when you're trying to play at a high level, like you got to put a lot of work in before the actual outcome. Like you for basketball, you're training in the summer for March. For next March, you got to be willing to go to the gym every morning and get the 1,000 shots up and do the sprints, do all of the things. And sports helps you be comfortable putting in work without anyone being in the gym cheering for you when there's no one in there. So I think that has helped me in that mindset. The military, you know, when you deploy, the level of nothing else is going on. It feels like the world kind of stops when you're deployed for a year, and you're just like in this like kind of time warp of Groundhog Day every day, where there's kind of the same thing. And that mindset, it kind of shifts your brain to say, you know what, I can lock in for a year. A year is a year. It's a long time, but like when you come back to America after a deployment, you kind of realize not much has changed. It's like, not, and usually you think a year is a very long time to like lock in and not do anything. And I think me deploying a couple times, when it was time for me to lock in for ByteChek in 2020, I was like, oh, I'm deleting. I started 2020, I deleted all my social networks. I had to get back on LinkedIn because of the pandemic and figure out a way to build my brand. But I locked in and I was like, I'm comfortable locking in for a year. I'm in America. This is easy. I can lock in and not do anything because of that deployment mindset. But so I think the military and sports definitely reinforced some of those skills that were there and allowed me just to have that relentless focus.
No, that's awesome. I took away two things from your last couple of statements. One was that ability to take your experience in the military and in sports to really transition that into focus into your career. One of the things that we're working on at Cyversity and our New York City chapter is specifically focused on is helping folks who are coming from other career paths who want to transfer into cyber and trying to build that, explain how where they can use their older skills to translate into their new skills. And one of the places we're really focused on is the GRC space, which kind of ties into ByteChek and risk assessments and risk analyst type skills. So that's pretty awesome. The other thing I took away from what you said was it's something I need, right? You said when you were talking about getting over your fears, you said, what advice would I give someone else? And I find myself, my son, is so much like me, but I see all my problems in him. This is what you should do. This is what you should do. I need my wife to come back and say, hey, you have the same problem, right? And I'm easy for me to tell him to do it, but kind of to tell myself and then follow it is a whole point of growth I need to do, and I think it can be valuable for people in many spaces. So tell us about ByteChek.
Yeah, so ByteChek, we are a cybersecurity compliance software company. We help companies earn SOC 2s, ISO, HIPAA compliance reports, and I'll paint the picture of why companies even need those reports. Generally, we're working with like early stage startups, small businesses, folks with a little bit of money in the bank, but don't necessarily have a huge cybersecurity staff or cybersecurity budget. But they are growing rapidly, and a big customer, and Amazon, and Microsoft, and Google comes to them and says, hey, I love your product. I want to do business with you. But before I do, I need to know you're secure. And I need a third party to come in and validate that. That's where ByteChek comes in. We're that third party that comes in and validates. We built a solution that takes away a lot of the manual stuff that is associated with cybersecurity compliance. So instead of grabbing screenshots of your cloud environments in AWS, we're automatically connected and pulling that information in on a continuous basis and getting away from these kind of point in time audits that don't really add any security value. Part of the reason why I started ByteChek is because companies were paying so much money and going through a lot of time for these audits, and they weren't getting any security value. They weren't improving the security of their environments, and that's what an audit should do. So with our solution, people are able to automate the stuff and get through compliance assessments faster, but they also get security value out of it. They improve their security environment and learn more about what's going on from a security perspective than just checking a box, which is kind of where the industry has went over the years. And we're hoping to bring it back to where these things have a lot more value through our solution. So it's a software company. We built a pretty cool tool that helps you build your program. So it helps with information security policies, do risk assessments, like you were talking about, some of the folks getting into GRC. We help you manage that program as well, doing the updates of those policies, connecting to those cloud environments, automating the evidence collection, doing the continuous monitoring. And then ultimately we can assess the program too and issue that SOC 2 report through our affiliate CPA firm called ByteChek Assurance. So a lot of what we built was based out of my frustration being at Coalfire and seeing what was going on in the industry and the problems companies were having, and making sure that when we talk about automating compliance at ByteChek, we're thinking about both sides of the table. We're not just thinking about the customers, we're thinking about the auditors as well, because it's the whole process that needs to be automated across both parties.
Okay, awesome. I feel your pain. I did a SOC 2 audit in my last company before I left. I've been doing ISO audits for the last 5 years, and screenshots and spreadsheets are my friend. Now, I will say I've been very skeptical of all the folks who've come to me in the past about, we can automate this, we can make it better. But what made you believe, in this crowded space, sorry, one second. What made you believe in this crowded space that ByteChek had a place. I see you've had some interesting back and forth with some of your competitors online. Why is ByteChek different? Why are you different than the existing players?
Yeah, I think the first reason is that the reason why I was like, I didn't really care about the competition or the competitive landscape is because I looked at all the other founders and I was like, hold on, let's take a look at these backgrounds. If you look at ByteChek's competitors and you look at the backgrounds of the other founders, they all have went through a SOC 2 audit once or twice. They went through a SOC 2 audit and they're like, man, this really sucks. I want to build a solution around it. They went to some really good schools that are well recognized. They're good engineers. So they're able to do that, build a solution, and get some funding. But when it comes to like actually understanding this problem and actually having have lived out this problem for years, there's no one else that in the industry. And I feel like I have like a secret advantage and a secret weapon because I can see the whole playing field. I know exactly where those gaps are. I know exactly where the customers are having issues, where the auditors are having issues. So a lot of the confidence that I've had early on has been just because of my experience, that domain expertise that I've had over the years has been something that I rely on in building the tool. And then the other aspect is, I think the other companies haven't really disrupted the industry. I think there's a lot of kind of smoke and mirrors around what's going on, and they brought software solutions to it and they're doing things, but it's still the same model. We're still doing the same things. People are still paying multiple providers to do this. There's still all of this manual aspect of it. It's not a truly automated, streamlined process. So I felt like there's an opportunity because ByteChek is the only truly all-in-one solution that lets people go from beginning to end without this disjointed process, paying multiple people and the like. So at this stage of the company, I told our, I would tell our investors this when we're raising, and even our customers, like we're a really early stage startup. So you're betting on my vision. You're betting on the fact that, you think that I'm the one that's going to be able to figure this out as the founder and CEO. And I'm confident, obviously, as a founder, but I'm confident because I've lived it. I lived the problem. I performed over 500 of these SOC 2 examinations for startups to some of the Fortune top 10. So I know the problem intently or intimately. And I think that is helpful. One of the things that a lot of entrepreneurs give advice, like just go start the company. It doesn't matter, just go build a business. And I don't agree with that. Like, don't start a company unless you truly understand the problem you're solving. I cannot imagine doing this if I didn't know what I was doing. And I can see it, like some of my competitors, even though they're raising all this money, I can see the flaws on their product. I can see the flaws in their model, like very clearly, but they don't see it, right? They don't know that because they just don't have that experience. And that's what gave me the confidence. I think it's a really big market. Competition to me validates the fact that we're solving a really important problem. So every time I see one of my competitors doing something great, raising some more money, it just tells me that like we're on to something. And I like ByteChek's chances to become the market leader.
Awesome. I see you've been doing some hiring. We have, I know at least 2 people in our immediate team here, and it's probably some folks who are in the audience that I don't know of that may be looking to get into a GRC career. What would you be looking for folks in your company, right? In that space, what kind of backgrounds are you looking for? Certain degrees, certifications, demonstrated, that demonstrated investment or demonstrated interest of the space. Like what are you looking for your entry level people, and kind of what advice would you give our folks who are trying to break into that bottom rung of GRC?
Yeah, I think this is a good question for you all to analyze founders or leaders when you ask them this. When you ask somebody about what do they look for in an entry level person, if they list a bunch of requirements, that's not entry level. That is no longer an entry level role. So when it comes to entry level, I don't look for anything. I want you, I don't have a set of certifications or degrees. It's truly entry level. Like I expect nothing, and I expect us to train you when you're trying to break into this field. And we've had some success bringing in people from non-technical fields into GRC roles, and that have now grown from an intern to full-time employees and are some of the best, people at ByteChek. What helped those people stand out are a couple of things. Their brand. They were active on LinkedIn, they were active on Twitter, and they had a strong brand that showed they're actually interested in this space. They're actually working towards breaking into this industry. It's not just something that's on the side. They actually want to do this. And that was definitely helpful. And then hunger, really having a purpose or a reason for why you want to get into this field, why you're doing it. I think that's really important at the entry level because it's going to be hard. There's going to be that learning curve, especially just going into especially at a startup. This is a fast-paced environment. Things change by the day. There's often days I have the worst day of my life by 9 a.m. and then it's the best day by 4. And then at 6 p.m. something happens and now it's the worst day again. So it's a roller coaster on a lot of days. And you're going to have to have a strong purpose of why you're doing this and be able to push through that if you're going to break in. And one thing that definitely helps, and I tell anybody if you're trying to break into tech right now or cybersecurity, is learn cloud. Like you got to learn something, pick a cloud provider. It could be AWS, it could be Azure, it could be GCP. It doesn't really matter which one. Learn the cloud, start down a certification path on the cloud. And the only reason I say certification path is because it can guide you as you're going up that journey and making sure you don't bite off more than you can chew. But we don't work with any companies that are not hosted in the cloud or have impact on the cloud. So if you come in as an entry level and you might not know about SOC 2, you might not know about ISO, but you do know a little bit about AWS. You can just speak the language. You know what an EC2 instance is. You know what an S3 bucket is. That's helpful because now that's one less thing that we have to train you on. We can focus on getting you that governance, risk, and compliance knowledge. And then, there's a lot of basics. Like I think a lot of people breaking in think you have to do a lot of this exotic stuff. Like keep your LinkedIn updated. When it's time for the interview process, you would be surprised. The way that we did this interview for our entry-level role is I sent out a tweet and a post on LinkedIn that said, we're hiring entry-level person, no experience required. All I need you to do is send your LinkedIn and a 1-minute video to this email. I would get DMs saying, where do I apply? Well, you kind of already disqualified yourself because you can't listen and look at simple directions of like, send this in. And then even the videos, people got really creative. Their LinkedIns were updated. Some people didn't even have a LinkedIn. And it's like, some people didn't show up to the interviews on time. Some people didn't know anything about ByteChek during the interview. So like, there's so many basics that you can do of just researching the company, being on time, following the basic directions that a lot of people self-select throughout the process because they don't do those. So if you just focus on doing like the very little things to show, not that you know a ton about SOC 2 or cloud, but you're just a professional. And we can trust you as a professional in this role because compliance, as as everybody knows here, this is a customer facing job where you're going to be in front of people talking to customers, advising them on security. So I got to trust that you're going to show up to meetings on time. I got to trust that you're going to look the part when you're in the meeting. I got to trust that you're going to be able to follow simple directions. And a lot of that comes out during the interview process. And it's unfortunate because there's probably really good people that make those mistakes because they're not paying attention to the details.
Awesome. Thank you. I was finding very interested, and there's so many. You talk about building your brand, being active on LinkedIn. I feel like there's a lot of experts on LinkedIn in every area of cybersecurity. That's what I'm following. But I see you're very active. And did it take you some time to build that confidence to be so active and to be so strong in your opinions?
It was forced. It was forced for me because my plan, if you read a lot of startup books when you're getting things started, they say get out the building and go talk to customers is the advice you'll see out there. And that was my plan. And then started building ByteChek March 1st. The world shut down. There was no building to get out of. There was no events to go to. So I was like, I have to figure out a way that when we launch ByteChek, people care about it. Somebody actually is like, oh, that makes sense. It's AJ, the cloud security compliance guy, launched the cloud compliance product. So I knew most of our buyers were going to be on LinkedIn. So I went in. What I do every time I want to do something new that I'm not sure of how to do it, I go learn. I go do a lot of research. So I just found a bunch of LinkedIn courses of how to build your brand on LinkedIn, learned about the LinkedIn algorithm. And the other thing I do when I get started, and I would encourage anyone doing this if they're going to start building their brand, is ignore the results for the first 90 days. Do not care about likes, don't care about views, don't care about comments, don't care about none of that. Focus on consistency and building that rhythm of I'm going to do this every day. And if you ignore it for 90 days, two things will happen. One, you're going to figure out what works and you're going to find your voice. The other thing is you're not going to quit too early. Too often we start something and we don't see the results in 30 days and we're like, this didn't work. I'm going to try something else. I'm going to go from LinkedIn to Twitter. but you didn't give yourself enough time to figure it out. You also didn't give these algorithms on these social networks enough time to know that you're a regular content creator. So they're not going to promote your stuff. They're not going to boost your stuff on these networks because they think you're just a random person that is going to post and disappear. And you have to understand there's algorithms behind all of this stuff as well. So, you know, that's my advice would be just ignore the results for the first 90 days, focus on the consistency. And it does take a while to find your voice and to feel comfortable. And something happened to me early on in 2020 that made me start to feel comfortable to share my opinion. I wrote this article to get published in InfoSec Mag, this publication out of the UK. And the editor wrote me back and said, hey, like, this is a good information, but you didn't tell me what you think. You didn't tell me what you actually think about I wrote something about AWS, and he was like, I want to know what you think. And like, that was when I realized like, oh, like they care about like my opinion, not just like regurgitating what AWS is saying. Like they want to know and when I started to realize like opinionated post and opinionated content does very well, because most of the time people, especially on LinkedIn, are just staying in the middle. No one's really taking a stance. And when you take a stance, two things happen. People that agree with you comment and they say, hell yeah, AJ, I love that. Good job. And then people that don't agree with you also comment, say, no, you are wrong. Both are good. You know, both engagement is good, but you're not going to get those opinions if you're in the middle. You're not going to get those opinions if you're just saying, oh, this is good and bad, and you're just saying in the middle. So I think, you know, one of the things that has been really helpful for me on this journey is I finally feel like I can be myself. It was tough for me to feel like I can do that at Coalfire. Now I really feel like I can truly be myself. And I'll tell you, being yourself is freeing. It is the most freeing thing you can do to just say, you know what, I believe in X. Who cares? Like if people accept it, people accept it. There's this BC Arlen Hamilton who says, be your true self so that the people who are supposed to find you. And one of the things that's happening with ByteChek is with me being as open and authentic about what I believe in and what I stand for, the people we're attracting to the company that want to come and work at ByteChek are people that are already in alignment with our values. I don't have to assess them because it's not a secret. It's not a secret what I care about, what I'm passionate about, and what I believe in. So it's helpful. You know, you're going to find your tribe by being more authentic. By not being authentic, you're going to attract people that you really don't like and that you don't want to be around because they think you're somebody else. So, you know, it's for me, it's been building your brand takes consistency, but it also takes ignoring those results in the first 90 days.
Awesome. I definitely wrote that one down. Be yourself so that your people can find you. If I have that correctly, I love it. I just want to stay on the topic for one more moment. I know we're running toward the end of the hour. I'm new to cyber. I am coming from a career as, you know, I used to own a dry cleaners, whatever. I came out someone here, I'm transitioning out of the Army, retired. I don't have a whole lot of opinions on cyber to be posting articles and opinions. You know, what would that person do to kind of be active in LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever? Yeah.
One of the best ways to get active on LinkedIn is find a couple of these cybersecurity influencers or experts that are out there that are regularly posting content and sharing it. Read the content that they're posting. If they share an article from a cloud provider that you're studying, read it. Whatever your opinion is, comment on that post and share your opinion on whatever. Say, hey, I actually just studied this S3 bucket thing. This looks really interesting. Thank you for sharing. I didn't know about X, Y, and Z. Or actually, I think this because I just learned X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be. What happens when you do that is you start to hijack their audience. You start to be in that. If you think about LinkedIn post as like a conference, imagine I'm at a conference, I'm talking to you, Kurby, you and I are having a conversation. It's a great conversation. There's a bunch of people, 10,000 people are around listening to our conversation about cybersecurity. Commenting on LinkedIn is you inserting yourself in that conversation. You saying, oh, actually this too, and now you're a part of the conversation. And then, you know, most of my posts nowadays are more than 10,000 eyes are on each post. So if you're in my comments, commenting back, and we're going back and forth on AWS security, what you're doing is twofold. One, you're finding your voice. You're figuring out how do I want to communicate on LinkedIn? How do I communicate? And the comments are a really low threat place to do that. But also now people are going to start to associate you and me together. You with cloud security, you in all of these discussions. So I would say start with comments. Don't feel like pressure to go post original content. Find people that are talking about the topic that you want to talk about, and then just start commenting on their posts. The other thing I would do is most people start out building their brand with their current audience, with the current people that are following them. chances are the current people following you are from your old jobs, from your old schools, from the hometown that you're from. They're not people that are going to care about cybersecurity. They're not people that are going to care about. So you're going to start posting this content and they're going to yawn and scroll right past it and not care. You got to build out your audience with people that are going to care about the topics you're going to talk about. So go out and start adding and requesting people that are in the roles that you want to work in, that are going to actually, if your topic is going to be cloud security, go connect with people in cloud security so that when you finally get the confidence to do that original content, now there's people that actually care about that. A lot of times we're like, I'm going to build my brand, but you don't think about who's been following you all this time. Probably not people that are going to care about the topic you're going to talk about. So that's why your content doesn't do well at first, because your audience you're not talking to the right audience. You don't have the right tribe around your profiles, whether that's on LinkedIn or Twitter. So I think if you're getting started and you're like, hey, I don't know enough to post original content, live in comments. Go find 3 or 4 people that are constantly posting about this stuff and just comment on their stuff all the time. You'll start to find your voice. At the same time, make sure your audience is going to care about the topics you're going to start posting about. Your friends from college probably won't. Your old employees, if you've been working in another field, probably won't care about cybersecurity. So you need to make sure you're talking to people that are actually going to care about this stuff.
Okay, awesome. I have a million more questions, but I do want to give, there's some in the comments, and anyone else that wants to jump in and ask a question, I want to give them some space to do that. I'll start with Malcolm. Malcolm Sims says, in the name of future audit transparency, could you see blockchain smart contracts be used for compliance audits with ByteChek?
Yeah, I think I get asked about Web3 like 3 times a week now, if ByteChek's going to step into that space. And I think we can eventually. I think there's going to be a huge market for cybersecurity in that space eventually. But right now, for me, I'm just relentlessly focused on doing what we're good at. And there's a saying out there in the startup world, or just in business in general, that the riches are in the niches. So I am extremely niche down when it comes to SOC 2 and helping early stage SaaS companies get through that. But I can see a future, Malcolm, of us bringing compliance and some more validation to that space.
Anor made a few comments. He was admiring your your Army background and the need to have to be on time. Anyone have anyone ask questions? I have more, but I want to give some space. I don't know, Eric. I figured it would be you. You would have to jump in there. Yeah.
I gotta thank you. This was absolutely amazing. I can truly relate to a lot of what you covered there. One topic you hit upon that isn't discussed a lot publicly or in the background, and that is understanding what it takes to make that leap into that entrepreneurial world, right? I know when I looked at it, I thought I needed to make like 4 times of what I actually needed to make to cover the nut. Can you go a little bit more into that? Because I think the audience will have a good appreciation for how easy it really can be when you break it all down. Could you go a little bit more into that with what you're comfortable about?
Yeah. I mean, I knew that we weren't going to have a ton of money when I was starting ByteChek. So, and the money that we were getting needed to go to keeping us alive and, getting our software, getting our tool built. And I was not trying to, what you kind of have to do, and what I did is like say, what's the minimum amount of money I need to survive? And like, it's not what's the minimum amount I need to survive and still go out to eat, survive and still travel. It's like literally to survive and stay home and do nothing. One of the things that helped me tremendously was the pandemic, because daycares were closed. So that $3,000 bill a month went away. So my nest egg was, I was like, all right, this works. I can actually live off of this ramen noodle diet for a little bit longer than what I had planned. But a lot of it was like literally looking at my savings, looking at my expenses, and financial stuff is difficult because people don't want to look under the curtain. You don't want to see that you're wasting money on Uber Eats, or you probably ate out one too many times over the last year, and you're like, man, I spent that much money on food. Or for me, it was shoes. I was like, you're spending this much money on. I knew I had a problem, but I didn't know it until I looked and realized that I needed to pull it back. So it was literally laying out the numbers, and when I did, I realized I was able to do it. I like had the ability to do it if I just became really disciplined. But I think if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, you cannot have personal financial issues or challenges, because you're not going to be able to focus. You're not going to be able to focus on growing the business. You're going to feel that pressure of, I need to make money. I need to provide for my family. And I knew I couldn't have those two things in conflict with each other. I needed to make sure that I was going to be taken care of with the minimum amount. And I'm happy to be fully transparent. I was making $250,000 at Coalfire. When I started ByteChek, I paid myself $38,000 a year. So it was a funny experience at the end of 2020 or in early 2021. I got a W-2 from Coalfire for the first 2 months of the year, was like 44,000 or something. And my W-2 from ByteChek was like 33. I was like, man, for 10 months of work, I made less money than I did in the 2 months at Coalfire. But that's kind of, that's what it takes is you got to take that type of jump. But I wouldn't have been in the position to do that unless I made some really smart financial decisions over the last year or some change. And it takes that much time to get your finances in order. You can't just decide tomorrow, I'm going to take a $200,000 pay cut. You got to actually build that up and build that nest egg up and make those decisions and really assess, what do you need to survive, and be at the minimum of that. And don't think, if you're starting a business, you're not starting a business to pay yourself a high salary. You're starting a business for a much, much larger outcome, and you have to think long-term when it comes to that stuff. Well said. Well said. You've just told my story as well. Thank you, AJ.
I have one final question if no one else has anything for you, and it's just one of your tweets I found very interesting in, and it's kind of one of my problems. You tweeted, "This transition from being my biggest critic to being my #1 fan has been beautiful." Talk about that for a second, if you can.
Yeah, I forgot. I think I was in the shower. You get the best tweets when you're in the shower. With like a shower head where you can like speak up, because my Twitter game is crazy in the shower, and they don't always make it Twitter. But I would sit in there and I started to like, do the typical self-talk of like, oh, you're not doing enough. And then like I stopped myself and was like, no, like, look at all the stuff you've accomplished just today alone, pulling it back. And when you are no longer the one beating yourself up all the time, and you're cheering yourself on, it lessens the need for external validation. It lessens the need for anybody else to care when you're the one that's boosting yourself. And a part of one of the things I read in Stoic philosophy is that Marcus Aurelius talks about, we place more emphasis on how we know ourselves the best. There's no one that knows AJ more than myself. There's no one that knows Kurby more than you, Kurby, your kids, your wife. No one knows you more than yourself. But we place way more weight on other people's opinion on ourselves. And we let that bring us to a point. And what I've transitioned into is like, my nature, my opinion is the thing that matters the most. If I'm comfortable with the decisions I'm making, the way that I'm living my life, and just being, ultimately happy for everything that's coming in my life. And I kind of shifted my mentality from life is not happening to me, that life is happening for me, regardless good or bad. The situations that happen are for me and for me to grow. It's been a beautiful transition, man, because like, the lack of care, I think that happens once you start to become your biggest fan. It's amazing, because nothing really matters outside of the fact that you are genuinely happy for yourself and happy for the person that you're becoming, and happy for the progress. That's where I'm at now, is where like, I know I'm not a finished product, and I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with the progress. And it's been amazing, and it's been a journey though. I think one of the reasons I'm passionate about talking about mental health publicly and making sure that people are doing things for their mental health is because it took me starting a business to focus on my mental health. It took me launching a company, and it shouldn't take others launching a company to start meditating and practicing mindfulness. I started my real serious journey at 30. My charge to myself is that my son is a mindful meditator on a daily basis at 15. I should shorten the time by half, and for him to get to this point. And I hope others can kind of step into this as well.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to end. I really, truly appreciate you joining in.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Donia.
There's a message in the chat box from Goodwin. if, yeah, did he say it? Do you want to
Stoicism.
talk about it? Yeah. Do you want to talk about it, Goodwin?
That was me. Hi, my name's Judd Welly. I'm a cybersecurity attorney in New York City. I've got 21 plus years of experience working in the federal government on national security cases and cyber cases. You know, I saw Kurby's invite to come to this group. One of the things we're trying to do is level up our clients around cybersecurity. We get opportunities to do that every day. And so please think of me as a resource, whether it's to give you some lessons learned in terms of, you know, the gray hair on my head, but also, you know, I'm probably going to have a lot of, you know, opportunities either to slot in, you know, folks that are providing services like AJ. We do a lot of work for private equity. We do a lot of work for their portfolio companies. And, you know, I'm here to tell you that there's a lot of need for this skill set. And so whether it's, you know, the services and the tools or whether it's the people. And one of the things I'm doing is working with their general counsel, working with their senior management team to understand and identify how they can get better. So just having, you know, connectivity with all of you, I would just be looking to be helpful going forward. So, you know, feel free to connect and then maybe we continue a conversation offline.
Awesome. Thank you, Jet. Thank you for joining. I just want to be mindful of the time. I know AJ is really busy, probably on the next podcast, next interview in a few minutes. So thank you so much for joining. Anyone who, Judd and the others who joined, there is a link in the chat just for a survey. If you can fill it out, any comments you have, we do take those to heart and try to incorporate, you know, suggestions for improvements and what have you. So thank you so much, AJ. Best of luck with ByteChek. I'll be following, and I'm going to share. I'm disappointed we didn't get as many. We've been averaging 20 plus folks for these in the past. So I will be sharing this link out again because I think it's been a very helpful conversation and inspiring. So thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Thank you, AJ.
Thank you so very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks all.